a major, some kind of an event, or I mean, it could have been something very minor, the butterfly syndrome thing, something that
Sure.
changed the path that the society was taking, and that we were now on an altered timeline.
That's really incredible, and I know that a lot of people are having that experience. And are you guys familiar with the WebBot report?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And that's something that they've talked about, that more and more people would begin to experience that kind of phenomenon. And actually, that was something that I wrote about in the second book, as far as timelines changing and maybe even separating into two different timelines. I think it happens all the time, but I think that there are so many people. I think that the energy is becoming more collective, and I think that the shifts are more sudden, and I think that they are more profound, which is a good sign, I think. I think it's really exciting.
You think we're hitting that 100th monkey effect point?
I think we're probably at the 80th monkey right now. I don't think we have too much farther to go.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too.
Yeah, I agree
another
with
interesting thing, I don't know if you guys have heard about this, but have you heard about people that are saying the planets aren't lining up quite right sometimes? Like the sun and the moon aren't rising and setting in the right place?
I saw a picture that a guy did a 12-hour exposure at night, pointed his camera directly at the North Star, and he took a 24-hour or a 12-hour exposure, and where all the stars streaked in the sky, and it was oblong. It wasn't the normal circle. And just a couple of years ago, I saw something real similar, and it was completely circular. It's almost like we're wobbling.
I think that's true. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I live out here in the desert in Las Vegas, and it gets really, really hot. So in the summertime, I love to be outside when I write. So I usually have to go out at night when it's cooler, and cooler is usually like the 90s, But I love, the desert nights are great, and I usually will determine how long I've been outside writing by the position of the moon. So it's common for me to look up the stars and kind of gauge where I'm at. It's kind of my nighttime clock. And this one particular evening, I want to say it was a couple of months ago, I was outside writing for a while. It was a little bit cooler. I had come in to make dinner for about an hour, and when I came back outside, the moon was in a completely different spot. So in my backyard, I have kind of a wide backyard, rectangular, and I guess the best way to explain it is it was directly over one corner of my backyard on the left, and an hour later it was all the way over in the other corner on the right. And I thought it was really strange, and of course, when things like that happen...
How's that possible?
I know, when things like that happen, we think, oh, I must have just misjudged, and we kind of blow it off. But I mentioned it to my husband the next day, and he said, I saw the same thing happen with the sun. And he told me about how, he was driving somewhere, and all of a sudden the sun was in a different spot. And I know that people are horrified because they've had all of this 2012 nonsense just, they're
jammed down their throats.
Yeah, it's very damaging. But I think that the shifts, some of them have already happened, and I think that's what you and I are seeing and feeling, and we're seeing the shift. And I mentioned this on a forum once, that this night when I saw the moon move, of course the moon didn't move, we did. And what was so great about it was I just woke up the next day to a brand new day. There was no major earthquake or tidal wave, and I think that's what's happening with people's consciousness reconnecting to the source, is that we're moving, the way I described it was like a record skipping. So, if you were in your room, back in the days when we had record players, right? And you just started a song, and let's say you stepped out of your room for a minute and you come back, and it's at the end of the song or it's on a different part of the record, then of course you would know that the needle skipped. And I think that's what's happening with this mass consciousness awakening, is that so many people are tuning into the source through love and kindness and graciousness, and don't want to experience the shift through pain and suffering. That I think we're skipping it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I kind of see a vision of a domino type effect where there's certain people or certain events that have to happen for the next to happen. And I'm not sure if maybe that's what I experienced when I felt like that veil or the curtain was pulled aside and things shimmered. Maybe that one element fell into place and was able to knock the next domino over.
Oh, right. Maybe you were the 100th monkey.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
exactly.
really, I'm not trying to be a smart aleck. I'm serious. You never know.
There's been a lot of groups, and I've participated in a few where meditations towards helping like clean oceans or just bring love to the planet so we can go through the shift. And I know there's a lot of groups coming up. They're doing it on their own. 30 people here, 500 people here, 1,000 people here. And I definitely feel that that's starting to really take effect because it's becoming more and more common where these groups are doing these things. It's just like that whole thing that happened in the, 1970s in DC, where during the summer they dropped the crime rate. But what was it, 30%?
Right. What was it, 12 people or something like that did it? Or was it a very small number of people, wasn't it, Ramon? That did that meditation?
Have you heard of that? That was like back in the 70s.
I not that particular instance, I don't think, but I think I remember, or maybe I'm getting them crossed. That's possible, but it seems like I remember a story about people just meditating over the Middle East, and wars went down about 50%. But there are a lot of people doing it now. There's a great site. The folks over at earthtransitions.com have had a lot of fantastic documented success. They work with the quantum field and the Devic realm, and they've, wherever they go, they heal water bodies. The weather goes back to normal. The weather fixes itself. It goes back to its proper blueprint and template, and the crime also goes down. So, I mean, that's kind of the direction that I'm hoping my work will help people go, is to see that the mechanical world is a reflection of a mechanical mind that is not entertaining its other half, which is the soul, and the technology. I guess we could call it soul technology. When we incorporate those kinds of technologies into our lives, we discover that all this other stuff we ran around creating and building was busy work because we weren't getting the full picture. So, like for example, there are scientists. You've got Bill Gates and all these people with all these millions of dollars that have just come up with all this ridiculous techno junk to clean the global warming crisis, which of course in itself is just nonsense. Have you guys seen these big plastic fake trees? I mean, it's just that they want to put out there. I mean, it's idiotic. Plant more real trees, So I think that fear is just the mind killer. There's just no other way to really say it. Fear is the mind killer, and not just the mental mind killer, but the soul mind killer. And
You've
people
watched
just are not.
You've watched the movie Dune, haven't you?
I have. It's been a very long time. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's where that came from. The first time I heard it, anyway. Fear is the mind killer.
I'll give you a prime example of what you're saying, Crystal. In Japan, they're talking about the whole global warming thing, and the proof is that the summers in Tokyo are getting hotter and more humid. And one of my students was saying this to me. I said, "Well, how many trees have you cut down since you were a kid?" And he goes, "Oh." And I said, "There's no trees in the streets. That's why it's so hot." There's no trees at all in Tokyo. It's just, except for the little segmented parks. It's disgusting. No sidewalk trees, nothing. So of course it's gonna get hotter every summer.
Yeah, and desertification is a big problem because of that too. Because like attracts like. Storms, thunderstorms will oftentimes be attracted to large bodies of water like lakes. So if there's nothing down on the earth that has moisture in it, it won't attract moisture to the area either. So desertification is a problem. When you start cutting down all of these trees, the feedback loop for the proper weather conditions isn't there anymore either. So, you have that going on too. But, like I said, fear is a mind killer, and a lot of people are just really, really afraid. But I think that there are so many more people that have their hearts and minds open to new possibilities. And really, in a way, you don't even need to know what the new possibilities are, because in a way you kind of can't until you experience them. But the only way to do that is to be open to them. And I think that a lot of people are opening their hearts and minds to a new way of life. And I think we're getting it. There's something else unusual. And I haven't had a lot of personal time to look into this, so this is purely speculation, but it really did pique my curiosity. I came across somebody online, and this was after I had the experience with the moon jumping. And a lot of other people are having the same thing going on, and your experiences also, I think, are part of that. But this individual was saying how, I can't remember where they lived, but it was 90 degrees where they live. And where they lived is on the same parallel as another country, and I want to say it was Norway, and I can't be sure, but you'll get the general idea. And he used to live there when he was a child, and he was talking about how it snowed so much there when he was a child, but as he got older, it just kind of turned into really cold rain and slush. But now, where he is, it was 90 degrees when it should be probably 50. And on the other side of the planet, on the same parallel, it was sub-zero. And his theory was, how could you have such diverse weather in two different parts of the planet on the same parallel? And of course, altitude does play a role. The higher and lower the altitude, that does change the climate quite a bit. But I think there was something to what he was saying, meaning that there may have already been a pole shift, and people just don't know it yet. Do you know what I mean?
Wow. Maybe I should go flush my toilet and see which way the water swirls.
Yeah, but I think what's so great about that idea, though, is that the idea that we all have to die some horrible, chaotic, painful death during a shift. I think that's another idea that didn't come from our own mind, which I think means we really need to ditch it.
Yeah, I don't think there's so much. That fear factor is just it's amazing. What just the last 2 years, Hollywood. Oh my God, let's burn that place down. I mean, they have pumped out more fear and hate and discontent, and it just there's one of the greatest evils in our society right now, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think what bothers me the most is the sexual perversion and the complete disregard for life.
Yeah.
In every movie they put out, even the music coming out of that place is it's so degrading, not only to the individual but also to all life on the planet. It's there's just no love, And I know people think that the idea of love is just such an airy-fairy concept, but people need to get back to the place where they remember that that's what brought us here.
Let's change the tuning frequency back to 432, right?
Yeah. Did you hear they're trying to patent that, or they did?
What? The tuning frequency of 432?
Yeah, the Catholic Church was patenting that, so you can't use it.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Oh, well, good luck enforcing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everything's at 440 now, and it's well, you're familiar with all the vibrations and resonances and all that, right, Crystal?
Oh yeah, because that's actually the fundamental principle of the one law is frequency and resonance. That's how it works. So, I mean, really, every single living thing is a song. It's an energy song. And, of course, you have all of these different musical notes that come in from all of the other songs. So that's kind of the thing, is every song is being co-created by all of the other songs. And it's really, really beautiful. And it's super simple, I think, for people to understand. But I think the hard part about it is once you see how beautiful it is, then you also are confronted with how we've really kind of missed it and messed it up.
Yeah.
But I think that's the first phase of healing, is you have to be able to identify where the wound is.
Exactly.
And then you're at a good place where you can really make some progress. But I think some really remarkable things are happening, and I think that so many people are focused on the fear and the death